Hi everyone. Our next our next speaker is Nadirah Sabir, and Nadirah spent the last 10 years in Miami as a co-caregiver for her beloved grandmother. There were wonderful lessons in advocacy and allyship, such as Alzheimer's research and best practices, brain health and nutrition, elder care and abuse, and community resources that have made her wiser. She lives a well-rounded life that keeps her in touch, relevant, open-minded, well-networked, and informed. Nadirah serves her community in several capacities, including as a certified birth justice doula, mobile midwife clinic doula fellow, and community medic with the Southern Birth Justice Network. She works with climate resiliency and equity, education and hurricane and disaster preparedness with the CLEO Institute. Moreover, Nadirah is a member of the Miami Workers Center, concentrating her efforts around the housing crisis and reproductive justice, all of which has served to inform and deepen her services to her doula clients. As a birth justice doula, Nadirah is working toward offering dual doula support to both her pregnant clients and their birthing partners during their prenatal period, labor and delivery, and postpartum. She is and has developed specialties around nutrition, herbology, mature birthing people, endocrine support, death and abortion doula care, and more. At the intersection of all that, she continues to engage Black women in conversations around reclaiming their orgasms by helping to name and unpack all those things, experiences, advice, interpretations that stand in between. So please welcome Nadirah.
Just a minute.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm this funny looking guy here at the table who's helping do the technology behind the event. While they are looking for their slides, I'm going to put a little music on. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves, and I'll make sure all that gets wrapped up and ready to go when they're ready. Thanks.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Is this better? Yes. All right, here we are. Okay, hello. Um, Thank you so much for inviting the Southern Birth Justice Network to participate in this workshop on increasing access to maternal care services. I'm Nadirah Sabir. As you heard, I'm a Birth Justice Fellow with SBJN in South Florida. That was a wonderful, long ride here to Missouri yesterday. And I'm really happy to be here. Before I get into the battleground that is Florida, I want to call into this space my mothers, and I invite you to do the same. So my name is Nadirah Sabir. When I say it again, you say your name. My name is, I am the daughter of Ziada Sabir, who was the daughter of Gracie Fowler, and her mother, Maggie Freeman, and hers, Martha Stevens. My three great, Rachel Davis, and my fourth great grandmother, Fanny. So I'm calling our mothers into this space. The most senior to Rachel and Fanny I never met in person on this side of the veil, and I shudder to think of them giving birth without an intelligent, experienced, loving community of family and birth workers surrounding them and tending to them. My fellowship with the Southern Birth Justice Network began with a great deal of excitement at the beginning of the year. I was halfway through the doula certification with the group when SBJN rolled out its mobile midwife clinic in Miami and invited a few doulas to be a part of the clinic as fellows. But first, let's look at how we got here. Why the mobile midwife clinic is necessary. Okay. I knew it was going to be complicated. Okay. So the mission of SBJN is to expand birth justice by using storytelling, popular education, community organization, to improve access to midwifery and doula care. What we do, our vision is to make this care accessible to all peoples, Black, Brown, especially youth, immigrant, Indigenous, LGBTQ+, low income, rural, any marginalized group you can think of. That's who we're trying to give access to. Actually, right now, 2 SBJN members are in Chicago at the Center for Reproductive Rights speaking. Our executive director, Jamara Amani, is in DC at the Aspen Institute right before heading overseas with a group of midwives and birth workers to conduct a Train the Trainers series of workshops at a clinic in Zanzibar in East Africa. And yes, I wanted to go. Next year, inshallah. SBJN is a part of an ever-strengthening network of Black doulas and midwifery organizations who have presented the case of Black maternal and newborn health disparities to the United Nations, to the US Congress, and you've heard it here too. So a few things you're gonna hear over and over again. So now you'll know, and you'll be ready for the pop quiz at the end of all of this. And you'll know that we know. Everywhere from Reno, Nevada, to Cleveland, to Miami, we know what's happening with our communities, and we're doing something about it. We continue to both sound the alarm about the Black maternal newborn mortality rate and obstetric violence in general. We are seeding solutions. We're breadcrumbing a path out of this madness. I want to give a content warning first. Some of this that you've heard today and that you'll hear from me is difficult. So I want you to take care of yourself. If you need to step away, if you need to take a drink, if you need to cry, go ahead. Do it. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself, because this is important work. It is hard work. It is heartbreaking. Okay? And I want you all to know that our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunties and our great grandmothers have already been through the worst of this. So, our lives are at stake. Say it with me. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. Okay, we're gonna start over. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. And that was Assata Shakur. And that is a very favorite quote throughout birth justice that you will hear. So here are the stats. In Florida, a Black mom and her newborn is 4 times as likely to die than a white mother and her newborn. In New York, it's 11 times as likely. This is regardless of education or income. Moreover, Black women experience the highest cesarean delivery rates in the US at 36%. And if you want to look at the breakdown by hospitals in South Florida, the C-section rates are highest in Black and Brown communities. For Black and Brown and Indigenous moms, it's more than 50%. That is that C-section rate we're fighting today. C-sections are meant as an emergency measure, not an everyday occurrence the way it is in South Florida. And here are the risks. We risk uterine rupture. We risk hysterectomies, bleeding, infection, blood clots. We have longer hospital stays, and we have a longer recovery at home. So unless it is medically necessary, it is not just a means to an end so you can make that concert date because you already bought the tickets. That is not what a C-section is for. And that's what we have to educate our clients about. The risks. These, even wealth, even education, even having a great team of medical professionals around you is really not going to save and has not saved Black women. It has not made a difference in the Black maternal experience in America. The news is always filled with the horror stories we've come to take as just the risk you have to take to become a parent. So with Beyonce, it was toxemia and preeclampsia. With Serena, it was blood clots. Cardi B, it was blood loss. How can this be happening regularly? But it is. And the very roots. Here we go. The father of modern gynecology. We all heard, you're gonna be so ready for this pop quiz. James Marion Sims. There are several statues of him around the country. He developed pioneering tools, surgical techniques related to reproductive health. Unfortunately, his research was done on the backs of enslaved women. They were his test subjects. They were captured. One of them herself was a midwife. Sims, the father of American gynecology, is a past president of the American Medical Association and the American Gynecological Society. He operated under the notion that Black people don't feel pain. He invented the vaginal speculum. Doesn't it make sense now? For those of us who've had to deal with that cold, hard instrument. At the Southern Birth Justice Network and throughout the revival of Black birth workers, we call their names. So you've heard them. Why don't you say them with me? Anarcha, Betsy, Lucy. They are the mothers of American gynecology. Some love to say, well, that was then, this is now, let go of the past, forget about it. And as you've heard today, researchers who've studied groups of first-year medical students, our best and brightest in this country, 63% believe Black skin is thicker than whites. 46% believe blood of Black people coagulates faster. Nearly 13% believe the nerve endings of Blacks are less sensitive. And even though I would love to have superpowers like that, I am not Wolverine. It's not the way we work. It's not the way human beings work. A Black woman is not safe in a hospital full of racism, and neither is her newborn. Implicit bias, structural racism. We don't simply include the notion of this. That is where we begin. We know wherein the problem lies, and we have nothing to lose by calling it out by its actual name. Implicit bias, structural racism. So, what is birth justice? It's a framework developed in 2010 to address these root causes of these birth disparities. It facilitates healing, It engages pregnant and parenting people to participate in actions that address their health, their power, in their own communities. So our goal with Birth Justice is bringing midwifery care back into our communities because midwives and doulas save lives. They save marriages. They save bodies. Our Birth Justice framework is here. It recognizes that all people can birth and be parents, people of color, immigrant people, LGBTQ, I'm sure that's wrong, communities in particular have survived a history of trauma and oppression around our decisions to have and not have babies. So we're looking to create a free world for our children to gestate, to be birthed, to play, to grow, to experience joy, and to be sentient, free individuals. So that is what Birth Justice and that Birth Justice framework is about, and that is at the core of what it is we do at Southern Birth Justice and so many other groups in this room and around the country. So these are some key issues in birth justice: reducing maternal and infant mortality, stopping the shackling of pregnant women or pregnant people, particularly those who are incarcerated, access to doula care, midwifery care, access to tools for self-care, trauma-informed care, because we cannot ignore what has happened to people in the past if we think we want to or we can care for them in the now. All of that's going to come to the labor and delivery room. Increased numbers of providers, the right to vaginal birth after cesarean, the right to breastfeed, expanding the right to terminate a pregnancy, the right to access holistic and natural care options, and certainly those that are rooted in your historical practices as a people. Whether, and in South Miami, we have all kinds of people. We have African-American traditions, we have Haitian-American traditions, we have Cuban, we have Nicaraguan. There's so many traditions, and they're rooted thousands of years as proof of their potency, and they need to be respected. So this is our Birth Justice Bill of Rights. Stand against racism. Let's see, let's start over here. Can you read number 2 for me, please? Let's keep going. Let's keep it going. Inclusion in the decisions that affect me. Recognize that my body is always mine. Can you imagine a health system based on that? These are your rights. These are the rights we teach our clients they have. These are the rights that we're pushing for when we're in that room with them. And even before, we're teaching them before they ever get there. We have them practice it just with their doctor's visits, prenatal doctor's visits, to get them in the mindset that they are free people. So this is what birth justice looks like, feels like, sounds like. And moreover, food security is birth justice. Freedom from violence is birth justice. Environmental justice is birth justice. And on and on and on. Audre Lorde said there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. All pregnant people deserve respect. So you should know the answer to this if you were listening. Out of the current 15,000 midwives in the US, Black women make up what percent? How many say A? A. How many say B? Nobody's raising their hand. C and D. Okay, so the answer is actually A, 7. You're so close. You're so, so close. I think she gave a range like between 5 and 8. I think that's what she said. Yeah. So Black midwives, we've always been here. We practiced all over the African continent for hundreds and thousands of generations. We've traveled all over the globe in a symbiotic relationship with other wise medicine women before we were kidnapped and brought to the Americas and the Caribbean and Central and South America via the transatlantic slave trade. And here we found a profound need for community care and women's wellness. Sojourner Truth was a master herbalist. Did you know the same cotton that many were enslaved to harvest was also used as an instrument of freedom? Cotton seeds, when ingested early enough, will end an unwanted or forced pregnancy. Before the 1920s, most Black, Brown, Indigenous people were birthed at the hands of community midwives. They cared for families, not simply birthing women. But when the hospital system was introduced and scaled, the American Medical Association launched a program against Black midwives, and you've heard about that recently. All of a sudden, Black midwives needed to be certified via the AMA, and very few were, even though many had trained them, white nurses and doctors, in techniques and pharmacology that we take for granted today. That was the beginning of the nurse midwife certification of white women and the end of Black midwives. It was the beginning of urging women to come to hospitals for all of their healthcare needs, especially birth. It was the end of culturally competent care. And that was when those Black maternal and infant mortality rates began to rise to what we see today. This is a clip. How do I play it? We need volume.
I would say somewhere between 42 and 44 years of midwifery, 3 generations. For me to stop means I'm not doing what I've been kind of asked to do. I felt like I've been asked to have this journey, and I welcome it through my ancestors.
My profession, I'm a midwife. I really believe I was born to be a midwife. I've quit a few times. And each time I quit, I get a beating until I get back into it. So I have no doubt that this is what I was born to do.
I worked in the projects right in the trench of everything, and I loved it. And I don't see myself doing anything. I work with women that asked me when I came, are you going to stay? Because no one stays here with us. And I said, as long as you want me here, I'll be here to take care of you.
Nobody had ever captured the stories of the Black midwife ever. Every time I read books or articles about the history of midwifery, it was always referring to history of the Caucasian midwife.
Due to the fact that they were plenty, Georgia alone had over 4,000 midwives. And when the medical profession was growing in its sense, it was time to remove those midwives. They had a strong reputation of family and culture. They were there as the child and children were growing up. So they were the counselors in the community. They were the caretakers. They were like the bush doctors, and they were the doctors of family lives. And so the medical profession didn't want that, didn't want the competition, even though they didn't get the money that doctors get now, but they were taking over a process that could make more money. So in the mid 40s to the late 40s, going into the 50s, they started to abolish the grand midwives out of existence by not having the facilities where the midwives would get the paperwork for the clients that they had, and they took it away. So any of those midwives that had grandchildren or children, you know, they would teach them some things to prepare them, even though they had to leave the profession.
Lived with my granny until I was 4. And every day, we went out and we went for a walk. And she would point things out to me. And when I was older and grown and she was long gone, a lot of that stuff started coming back. I became kind of the neighborhood herb lady. And people would bring me their mash fingers and, you know, ask for advice about sore throats and stuff like that.
A lot of people use the phrase, it's a calling, and it's almost like a cliche, but it really is a calling. When it strikes your heart that this is what you want to do, you want to support women in birth, you want to touch their lives, you want to touch the heads of these babies. It's a passion, sister. It is a calling.
So Biddy Mason was a really famous community midwife around that time. And I just want to call her name. So we all know in this room, midwives are the part of the solution. And we know what midwives are. Half of us in the room are midwives, right? How many are midwives? Yes, love it. All right. And how many are doulas? Look at this. I'm with my people today. I'm with my people. Oh my goodness. So whether a birthing person chooses to deliver in a hospital, a birthing center, or at home, we can be there for her long before she delivers, helping her shape the birthing experience she wants to have. SBJN centers all Black mamas and birthing people and other at-risk groups like young moms, low income, rural, LGBTQ. Remember, all pregnant people deserve respect, quality care, access to sensitive midwives, doulas, doctors, nurses, lactation consultants, and other birth workers, and we really mean that. So this is one last video. This is what it says, our Young Mamas panel, and we hear what it's like to be a young mother in Miami.
So this is Leia. I call Leia my warrior baby. So this story might make me cry because the beginning of it really sucks, but she's amazing. My God, she's amazing. I got pregnant and I found out when I was maybe 8. I went to a clinic in Hialeah to get an abortion, not a surgical, a medical abortion, that's what they call it. And they gave me some pills and told me to go home. Stick the pills up yourself, and in 48 hours, the fetus should come out. I said, okay, went home, cried about it, took my shot, inserted my pills, and thought everything was over. 48 hours, there was no blood. I went back to the clinic. They said, oh, just wait. A week later, nothing there. I said, okay, man, just Hialeah. They did something wrong. I'm gonna go somewhere else. I went to another clinic, and might I mention both of these clinics now, both of their offices say for lease outside. So I don't think they were clinics at all. Went to the next supposedly women's care clinic. They did the same thing, gave me pills. At the time, I wasn't aware that you're supposed to have an ultrasound before an abortion, because I've never done this before. I didn't get any of it. So I gave me the pills again. I went home and did it again the second time. Now, after the second 48-hour period, I noticed that I was bleeding a lot. Way more than my normal period amount. This brought red flags to me and made me know that something was wrong. There was definitely still something going on here. I was traumatized out of my mind and tried in my own ways to make the baby go away. I prayed. I went a week without eating. Like, literally, I reached out to Tiffy and I was in tears, and I told her that more than anything else, I was disappointed in myself. I had just turned 21, and 4 kids was not on my agenda at all. 1 kid wasn't on my agenda, and I got 4. And I was disappointed in myself. And I didn't go anywhere. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't want to give birth. I didn't want to do parenting again. Not that I ever stopped. I just didn't want to go through it all over again. And I met with Jamara around maybe my 5 or 6 month mark. And we had a real conversation. And the realest thing that anyone could have asked, Jamara asked. And she said, now that you're here and we're discussing this, what is it that you want to do? And for me, that was something that I didn't think anyone else cared about. No one had any care or concern for how I was going to feel before or after, especially my family, who had only concerns with their selves and how they felt about the situation. So after I had my mental check and I was able to bring myself to the reality that I was comfortable with, I decided that I was going to have my baby and do everything that I needed to do to make sure that she was healthy, and she came out amazing. I felt as if, as a parent, I neglected her in the beginning, and this made my entire pregnancy scary because I felt like something was going to be wrong with her. I felt like she was going to come out with 10 eyes and 27 toes, and I just was not prepared. Like, when she was born, the first thing I asked Jamara was, is she okay? And I was nowhere near prepared for her to tell me yes. So the picture that Jamara is sharing is a blessing way that the Southern Birth Justice Network threw for me, just to give me the assurance that although I didn't feel deserving, that I was. And it wasn't like annoying baby shower, big chairs, balloons, people who just come and eat their food. Like, this was literally a time where it was about me and making sure my energy was centered when it was time to bring this warrior into the world. And that's why I named her Leia, because my entire pregnancy was a battle. towards the end of my pregnancy, I had to go through Dr. Spence telling me that my iron was too low to deliver in birth center and that I would have to go to North Shore Hospital. X marks the spot, Dr. Spence. I quickly asked Jamar what were the things that I needed to do on my end to ensure that my health was up to par. For maybe 2 months, I was going back up to North Shore, doing iron and infusions. Iron infusions, because transfusion is blood. My amazing doula Tiffany put me on a iron boot camp. I was in a cast iron pan. I was eating granola. Everything was beef, and spinach all day. I can't even smell spinach now, but I'm trying to breastfeed effectively. And these are literally the things that made everything possible for me. The difference for me personally between the birth center and being in the hospital was in the moment you realize where your strength is. During my own birth, and my midwives and my doula, everyone who's around me during birth is my witness. I scream bloody murder. I want to go home. I want all the pain meds, all the relief. I don't want any of it. I want to be in bliss. And the only time where you really realize that you want that relief is when it's almost over. And literally, I want to say it had to be, I was screaming for the epidural for 5 minutes, and Jamara said, "For what? You're done." I said, "What are you talking about, lady? I just want to go right now. I got to go right now." And she said, "Okay, Lanaya, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to give you a minute, okay?" And I said, "Okay," and my one tear fell. And I said, "Hasn't been a minute yet," and 5 minutes later, my baby and came out like a poop. And in that moment, all I could feel was the strength that was being poured into me from the time that I encountered my midwife and my doula. All the support that you feel prenatal, a lot of times almost feels like a brush over until you're in labor, when you're not even realizing that you're putting everything that you were taught into action. Everything that your doula was saying, everything that your midwife is giving, all the support that you need is there. As to in a hospital where you're connected to a bunch of crap with a science experiment, someone is walking in and out of your room every 5 minutes, and there's no sense, there's no love to me. In a hospital, there's no love, there's no affection, there's no, "I just need a hug right now." There's no, "Give me a minute, I have to do this at my own pace." And that is one of the most important things during labor and during birth, is just being able to identify your own strength. Because once you're able to identify your own strength, you take that strength that everyone has been pouring into you and you use it for the biggest moment, which is pushing out your baby. And once that's done, you're in bliss.
May of 2019. It was Mother's Day to be exact. Well, it was the day before Mother's Day, and I had felt contractions the night of. It was around 9, and then my water broke, and then my dad came to get me and he took me to the hospital he had been doing security for at Jackson Hospital. So I went to Jackson, and when I got there, there was an all-white staff there when I had to register. It took them forever to give me my information, to even come and see me and check my vitals and everything like that. It took up until for me to a whole bunch of blood just came out for them to finally like tell me like, "Okay, now we have to check the vitals and stuff like that." So while I'm just sticky full of blood. Give me a second.
Wow.
I'm sticky full of blood, and now they check my vitals, and now they want to, check my weight and stuff like that and make sure I'm okay. So after that, more blood comes out, and at this point, my boyfriend at the time is just like panicking, like he's mad, he's irritated because now they waited up until this point to want to check me. So now I'm in the room, and they have me changing my clothes. By this time, the contractions are getting worse, and I'm telling the nurse after I done passed the baby and all the blood clots, I feel the baby out on It's like a little small. So I pushed it out, and she's constantly telling me like, "No, that's not a baby." I'm like, "Ma'am, like I literally just pushed the baby out. I need a different pad. I need to change because I know the baby's on the pad." So after me trying to convince her and tell her for 10 minutes, she finally checks and then she leaves. Nobody says nothing to me. Nobody does anything. Another doctor comes in and then rolls up the pad. I'm like, okay, is somebody gonna tell me whether or not it's the baby, or do you even know if I want to see it, if I want to, have a moment, if I want to, talk or anything, if I want to cry? Like nobody's gonna tell me. They're just gonna roll up the baby, do whatever, and I guess dispose of it how they were supposed to. So I guess my boyfriend said something, and the lady was like, "Yeah, this is the baby," and all that stuff. So he was like, "Can we get a moment to at least, talk and stuff like that?" So she left the room. She came back. They changed my sheets and stuff like that, and they moved me to another room. Up until when they changed me to the other room, I didn't get no kind of help or no kind of guidance up until it was time for me to get discharged the next day. They kept me overnight for observation, but the only kind of information I got was a Black nurse, and she was a little older than me. She looked like she could possibly be like my mom's age, and the only thing she told me is that, if you want to have another baby, please tell them that you miscarried in between 15 and 17 weeks and stuff like that. No doctor told me that, and both my doctors were white. Nobody said anything about that to me. They told me that they would come in and check on me, which they didn't. Only the Black nurse did, and that was that. She's the one who gave me my death row and things like that. She gave me information. She told me where I should go. She told me how I should go about the procedure, because she told me because of what happened to my body and how they caught on to it, that I would need to go to the doctor and tell them like, "Hey, I miscarried in between this week and this week, so I do need, for you to give me some kind of shot or to be seen every week." I didn't get that kind of information. Nobody volunteered anything like that. And I felt like they were just trying to sweep under the rug that I had a miscarriage, like I don't have feelings. And I don't feel that was fair.
You guys mind if I share a document with you guys? Just for us to look over. This is a beautiful document that Jamara created with Haji, the Southern Birth Justice Network, correlation with National Black Midwife Alliance, and this is Birth Justice Bill of Rights.
It says, as a Black preconception, pregnant, birthing, or postpartum person, I have the right to stand against racism, know my history and resist institutional racism, honor my values, express my culture, develop a network of safety and support, represent my Blackness, care for all my identities, protection from violence, understand my health, respect my family structure, comprehensive care after I give birth, support from my doula, access to everything I need to be healthy, support in reducing stress, inclusion in the decisions that affect me, ensure access to all birth care options, honor the natural birth process, support my baby's right to human milk, get a second opinion, advocate for my rights, time to heal and bond, and to recognize that my body is always mine. Does anybody else have an experience or something that they can relate to any of these Bill of Rights, whether they were acknowledged in a positive light or whether they were acknowledged in a negative way, whether it's something that someone can learn from an experience that you went through with the situation, just anything that you have that relates to any of these rights.
Thank you. I was having a hard time finding. Hi again, my name is Yamis, and I just wanted to share my birthing experience. The reason why I'm scared to give birth again, because I went to a hospital. I was pregnant with twins, and I don't usually tell my story, and I don't usually say anything. I just kind of sit back here and listen. I was pregnant with twins, and I was delivering at Jackson North Hospital. Yeah. The day of, I was having contractions, and I was 15 years old. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew my stomach was just turning red. It wasn't supposed to turn red. I can see the baby figures through my stomach. and I'm trying to like relay that to the doctors and nurses, but they're not actually listening to a 15-year-old. They're just trying to hurry up. And I'm trying to explain to them or let them know that the baby is moving and it's moving weird, and you guys are prepping me to push, but there's something going on down here. And I don't know what's going on down here, but I know that whatever's going on down there is not supposed to work. So me trying to tell them that nobody's listening, they're all still trying to prep me to push. Is so then I had to tell my mom's friend to, hey, please get them to listen to me. Something's not going right, because they was not listening to me. So I had to tell somebody else to tell them that something is not going right. So after that, she took my mom's friend, told them, and she checked me, and that they realized that the first baby was already coming. In which I was trying to let them know that I felt it. Like I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't have this experience. My pregnancy, I stayed in a house. I went to Pope and came home. I didn't really go anywhere. So it's like, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing afterwards, just what older people were telling me I was supposed to do, I guess. Like my mom and my grandma, my aunties. So it was just me and my mom's friend in the room who was there, and I'm trying to like elaborate or tell them that something's not going on right. The baby's right here. And then after she checked me and she realized that the baby is coming, like 3 minutes later, I have the C-section, and again, I don't know what's going on. No one's telling me anything. When I came, I remember the C-section a little bit. I remember them saying something was going wrong with the baby. I remember just in and out, just it going in and out. And when I came to, and I only seen one baby. I only seen my baby father with one baby, and like a whole lot of stuff was coming to my head, because I remember the last thing I remember was the nurse saying, "Stay with the baby." And then when I woke up, that was it. So when I woke up and I'm looking for another baby or the second baby, because I knew I was supposed to have two, and he's only holding one girl, and I'm like, what's going on? Where's the other baby? Where's the baby? And no one could really answer me. Like, no one really told me anything. To this day, I honestly don't know what happened. I literally honestly don't know what happened, because my baby father, he was told to stay.
Okay. So these are the kind of experiences that our young mothers have on a regular basis, not being listened to. And that's why they come to us. One of our programs at SBJN is our Miami Birth Justice Initiative. I think you have the sheet. We're kicking off a partnership with that same hospital, Jackson Memorial Hospital System. It is the largest hospital system in Florida, and it is notorious. The primary teaching hospital of the University of Miami School of Medicine, and this is going to put our doula cohort, our next doula cohort, in the hospital on the floor with maternity patients. We also speak and train at medical schools. One of my doula clients just delivered at an Orlando area hospital, and it felt unreal. The doctors were actually respectful and always asked consent. The nurses were patient and did not push unnecessary interventions. It was the experience all women deserve, and I was so surprised. Later, Jamara told me that hospital had been working with a Black midwife in the area and active in birth justice to retrain staff in order to lower C-section rates, end obstetric violence, be more culturally competent, listen to their patients, support informed decisions, and treat them with dignity. I'm telling you, the experience blew me away. I was in tears, happy tears, and my client had a great birthing experience. So this work matters. And when the medical community takes it seriously, the results are profound. The mobile midwife clinic kicked off at the beginning of 2003. This year, the clinic is staffed with midwives, doulas, clinicians, administrators. Wait, hold on, I think I missed something. Wait, let's go back. Yes. Um, it's staffed with midwives, doulas, clinicians, administrators. Almost every Saturday, we're in a Black or brown neighborhood in Liberty City, Overtown, Little Haiti, Miami Gardens, North Miami Beach, offering up free services and giving referrals. We often partner with community organizations in the areas, and it's really been a blast. We also do free diapers, pregnancy testing, breastfeeding support, prenatal screenings, midwifery and OB referrals, doula services, family planning, childbirth education, and storytelling circles for the kids. SBJN recently got the opportunity to purchase a birth center in Broward County, which is north of Miami, and that purchase will be finalized next month. Meanwhile, Jamara continues to document grand midwives and their legacy in their communities via film. You saw an excerpt of that earlier. I'm a graduate of the third cohort. One of our day-long workshops was led by a multi-generational midwife from the Northeast. Her well of knowledge was fascinating and it ran deep. She remembers being a child going on midwifery calls with her grandmother, who was a midwife. My cohort just graduated. We started out with about 30 from South Florida and as far away as Hawaii, and about 15 to 20 of us completed the year-long intensive. Every cohort, SBJN seeds another 15 to 20 more doulas in various communities. Others, including medical students, volunteer with a mobile midwife clinic. They are Haitian, African-American, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Central and South Americans, Nigerian Americans, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Jewish, agnostics. 2 doulas who graduated are men, and I hope there are more. So we are really, really happy to be sharing this work and to be seeding this. And in Florida, there's so much work to be done. Most assume doulas are only interested in working at birthing centers and with home births, but hospitals are where we need it most. My first call to action was with a mom who was in South Miami, and she was alone. And at the end of it, she was a really empowered mom who gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. And I'm really, really happy that she had the kind of empowered experience. We were able to carve that out from how it started. In parting, I'd like to lift up a land acknowledgement. In Kansas City, I apologize for my complicity in your subjugation and erasure, and I name you Hopewell, Mississippi, Kanza, Osage, Otos, Missouri. Call out any other Native American nations that are indigenous to Missouri if you know them. In Florida, I apologize for my complicity in your subjugation and erasure, and I name you Seminole, Creek, Calusa, Appalachie, Miccosukee, Miami, Ocala, Ibi, Mosoko, and so many more. And in this body, I apologize for my complicity in your subjugation and erasure, and I name you Nadirah. Thank you.
Actually have time for questions if everyone has questions. Sorry. Sorry, Nadirah. Yeah, that's okay. We can make this work.
Any questions? Yes.
Thank you for the work that you're doing in your community. We saw all those stories about the horror that was going on in that hospital, and then you mentioned at the end that they're now actually engaging with you in change. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened, how you made that transformation happen?
Sure. The beginning of that happened long before I came to SBJN. Birth workers, midwives in particular, who work in advocacy like Jamara, the Black Midwives Alliance. There's several organizations that have been working, targeting Jackson Memorial and other systems of power to really get them to understand the damage that's being done. And when the numbers come out, because even if people don't respect people, they respect the numbers. When the numbers come out that Florida has one of the worst C-section rates in the country, that Florida, you know, Florida moms, Black moms are 4 times more likely to die than white moms, it's embarrassing. So it's through the embarrassment, I think, of the numbers that they were able to finally, after years of advocacy, to get these boards to sit down with them and work out helpful ways to turn these numbers around. And to do that again with the numbers, that the numbers say 60% of moms who work with a doula or a midwife do not have C-sections, et cetera, et cetera. So it's with the logic, you know, that they were able to finally kind of drill through and get these people to sit down and work out a system that's going to begin to change. And like the hospital system in Orlando, it's Winnie Palmer Hospital. They're part of Orlando Health. Amazing. I wasn't expecting it. Like I was really expecting to go in there and battle like I do when I go to a hospital birth. And it was just so easy. It was so beautiful. I was just like, oh my God, I shouldn't feel this way. Like this should be normal, but it was amazing. And so we want to get Jackson to that point. You heard her, like when she said she went to Jackson to give birth to her twins and they were about, it's like, ugh. Like that's the feeling. Like you don't want to go to Jackson. It's that public hospital. It's seated in, you know, a largely Black community. It's in downtown, but it's surrounded by homelessness. And yet it's this huge hospital. They get lots of money. They have all of these feeder teacher, you know, teaching hospital universities that come in, and yet they have some of the worst numbers. So showing them their numbers and saying, you've got to do better. And I'm happy that finally there was some leadership there that was willing to do the work to make it happen. And so this next cohort, which actually begins next month, they're going to have a completely different kind of experience in their certification process because they're actually going to be on the hospital floor. And I know one of the things that we were looking at doing is part of the prenatal work that I do as a doula. Towards the end is teaching the birthing person and their partner what to expect when you go to the hospital. So these are some scenarios you're likely to run into at the hospital, and this is how we're probably going to handle them. So you know you're ready for them, because you actually have to prepare them for some of the craziness they're going to experience at one of the most vulnerable times in their lives. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.